what if the biggest threat to your success isn't failure, but your ability to follow instructions perfectly?
Oh, man. It's such a wild premise because it completely flips the script on literally everything we're taught from the moment we enter the education system.
Yeah.
We're heavily socialized to believe that obedience is the ultimate safety net. Like it's the only reliable path to a secure livelihood.
It's the whole, just put your head down and do the work mentality.
Exactly.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to this deep dive. Today, we're taking a really close look at a very specific provocation from Seth Godin's work.
Yeah, a really powerful one.
Yeah, we're focusing on the concepts laid out in the opening chapter of his treatise on creating work that matters. Specifically, this section titled, "We Are All Artists Now," from pages 9 to 11.
It's a short section, but it packs such a punch.
It really does. So our mission today is to unpack this single kind of overarching argument, which is that the societal system that promised us security in exchange for our absolute compliance is fundamentally broken. It's just not working anymore.
No. And for anyone listening, whether you're building a business or maybe navigating a corporate career or just, trying to figure out how to do work that actually feels meaningful.
Right. Which is most of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Understanding the mechanics of why following instructions is suddenly a liability is the vital first step to reclaiming your agency.
And I think the timing of this text is just critical because we're living through this transitional period where the old rules simply do not yield the old results anymore.
Yeah.
The author is making the case that continuing to operate under the assumption that compliance equals safety is actually the riskiest bet you can make today.
The riskiest bet. I love how he frames that. So to understand where we're going with this, we first have to look at where we came from, right?
Right.
The text spends a significant amount of time discussing this invisible contract we've all signed. It is what we might call the grand bargain.
The grand bargain, yeah.
We were told to, get our resumes in perfect order.
Right. Use the right font,
Mm-hmm.
the right keywords. Yeah, swallow our pride, fit into the existing structure. And in exchange, we were promised that eventually it would be our turn.
And that bargain didn't just materialize out of thin air. I mean, it was the defining economic engine of the industrial age.
Because before that, things were very different.
Completely different. If you look back 150 years, we transitioned from an agrarian, craft-based society into a heavily centralized factory-based one.
Right.
And to make a factory work, you don't need 1,000 independent thinkers.
God, no, that would be chaos.
Right. You need 1,000 people who can follow the manual without deviation.
Yeah.
So society literally redesigned its institutions, specifically public education, to mass produce compliant workers.
You mean like the structure of school itself?
Yes. The bells, the rows of desks, the strict adherence to the curriculum, even the punishment for talking out of turn.
Oh, wow, yeah.
These were all features. They weren't bugs. They were designed to acclimate humans to the factory floor.
Which makes sense historically, I guess. The system needed cogs, and if you agreed to be a reliable cog, you got paid.
You got your steady paycheck, maybe a pension.
Right. But what I find so fascinating here is the author's critique of the prizes we received for keeping our end of the bargain.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
Yeah, the text points to some very specific modern cultural symptoms of this trade-off. We traded our autonomy, and in return, we got debt.
Mm-hmm.
We got self-storage units, and we got reality TV.
Yeah.
So why does he highlight those specific things? It seems kind of random at first.
Well, it's because they act as psychological pacifiers. Think about it. When you spend 40 hours a week suppressing your natural human instinct to create or to connect and to solve problems creatively,
Which is exhausting.
right, when you bottle all that up in the name of compliance, that energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
The system channels it into consumption. So the debt and the self-storage units are the physical manifestations of trying to buy the satisfaction we aren't getting from our work.
Wow, okay. So we're just buying stuff to fill the void.
Exactly. We buy things we don't need to reward ourselves for enduring a job you don't like.
Yeah, the classic retail therapy.
Right. And then we have so much stuff, we have to go rent a concrete box on the edge of town just to store it all.
The self-storage industry is massive. It totally makes sense.
And in reality TV, or really any passive, numbing entertainment, it serves to quiet the mind at the end of a long day of emotional suppression. You just zone out.
It paints such a stark picture, and it leads directly to this pervasive idea of, you are not your career.
Which we hear all the time.
We do. We've normalized the complete separation of who we are as human beings from what we do for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, like you put on your work persona, and then you take it off when you get home.
Exactly. We think of our job as the waiting room of life.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's like we're just sitting there flipping through an old magazine, waiting for the boss to call our name and hand us a promotion.
It's just biding our time.
Right. But I do want to introduce some practical pushback here.
Sure, go for it.
Because the premise implies that this whole system is a trap. But practically speaking, mortgages exist, right?
Very much so.
Healthcare costs exist. If someone simply wants a predictable paycheck to provide for their family, isn't punching the ticket still the most rational, mathematically safe bet?
Well, it was the safest bet for a very long time, which is exactly why it's so hard to let go of.
Yeah, it's ingrained in us.
Right. During the peak of the industrial age, competence and compliance were scarce resources. If you were reliable and obedient, capital rewarded you heavily.
You got the gold watch?
You got the gold watch,
Yep.
the corner office. But the mechanics of the economy have fundamentally shifted. We no longer live in an economy where standardized, compliant labor is scarce.
Because of technology.
Exactly. Anything that can be written down as a standard operating procedure can now be automated, or digitized, or outsourced to a cheaper labor market.
So the math equation has actually changed.
Precisely. If your primary value to a company is that you follow instructions perfectly, you are in direct competition with algorithms.
And algorithms don't need healthcare.
No, and they work 24/7.
Yep.
You're also competing with global labor forces that can follow those same instructions faster and cheaper.
Wow.
So the illusion of safety is just that, an illusion. The world no longer owes you a middle-class living just because you waited quietly in the room and did what you were told.
That's a harsh reality check.
It is. The premium, the actual financial and social reward, has shifted. It's shifted to the things that cannot be easily replicated,
Like what?
like insight, connection, and the ability to navigate ambiguity.
Navigating ambiguity. That makes the transition away from compliance not just a philosophical ideal, but an actual economic necessity.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to how this actually plays out in the real world. Because if we're all still clinging to this outdated, compliance-based behavior, where does it manifest most obviously?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Right. The text points directly to the modern corporate meeting.
Yes. It is the perfect microcosm of the grand bargain in action.
Oh man, we have all been in this exact scenario.
Setting the scene.
Yeah, picture it. You're sitting in a conference room, the AC is humming, fluorescent lights, the director finishes going through a 40-slide deck on, quarterly projection.
Mind-numbing stuff.
Right. They close the laptop, look around the room, and ask the classic end-of-meeting question. So does anyone have any thoughts or suggestions on how we can improve this?
And you could hear a pin drop.
The response is always a heavy, suffocating silence. People suddenly find their shoelaces fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Looking anywhere but at the boss.
They start busying themselves with packing up their bags. Nobody wants to make eye contact.
No one.
Why does a room full of highly educated, highly paid professionals suddenly act like a group of middle schoolers hoping the teacher doesn't call on them?
It's crazy when you think about it. But the author identifies the culprit here as a systemically amplified censor.
A sense?
Yeah, it's an internal voice that screams at you to stay quiet. But it's really important to understand the mechanics of how that censor got amplified in the first place.
Right, because it's not natural.
Exactly. It's not just personal insecurity. That silence is the result of decades of structural conditioning.
Okay, what do you mean by structural conditioning in this context? How does the system actually amplify that fear?
Well, think about how performance is measured in a traditional hierarchy. Let's go back to school. You start with 100%, and every mistake you make deducts points.
Yeah, a red pen circling everything you did wrong.
Right. You are penalized for errors, not rewarded for wild, innovative guesses.
True.
And that exact same grading mechanism is transferred directly to HR departments and annual performance reviews.
Wow, yeah, it's the same system.
It is. In most corporate structures, the downside of speaking up and proposing an idea that fails is career limiting.
Right, you stick your neck out and it gets chopped off.
Exactly. You get a reputation as reckless, or you get it passed over for a promotion. But the upside of staying quiet and just executing the baseline, that's continued employment.
So the system mathematically rewards risk aversion.
Bingo. So when the boss asks for ideas, Your brain is running this lightning-fast risk assessment, and it correctly calculates that speaking up is a high-risk, low-reward behavior in an industrial setting.
So it's not that the people in the room lack talent or passion or ideas.
Not at all.
They are just highly calibrated risk assessors responding to the environment they've been placed in.
Yes, they are perfectly capable of seeing a problem and solving it. But the sensor shuts them down to protect them.
To protect them from the system.
Right.
But the text also points out what happens when that silence is actually broken. Like if someone does raise their hand, proposes something entirely left field, and the leadership doesn't immediately shut them down.
Oh, the whole dynamic changes.
Yeah, the entire energy of the room shifts.
You can feel it when it happens. It's palpable. The tension just breaks. Someone else chimes in to build on the idea. Suddenly, you have this collaborative, dynamic conversation.
It's like waking up.
And the reason for that shift is that the first person gave everyone else permission to drop the armor of compliance. They proved, in real time, that the sensor's threat of immediate execution was a bluff.
Right, they didn't get fired for having an idea.
Exactly. It allows people to temporarily access their actual human capability rather than their programmed worker bee persona.
Which means we need to start auditing our own behavior, really.
Big time.
Like the next time you're in a group setting and you feel that tightness in your chest, that urge to just nod and pack up your laptop.
We all know that feeling.
You have to recognize that the feeling isn't a reflection of your actual ability. It's a learned reflex.
It's conditioning.
Yeah, it's systemic brainwashing designed to keep the factory running smoothly, not to extract your best work.
Exactly. And to effectively overthrow that internal sensor, we have to look even deeper at how that trap was set.
Because it didn't happen overnight.
No, it wasn't an accident at all. It was built very slowly over a long period of time.
The text uses this brilliant parable to illustrate this, and it centers on how a trapper catches a wily, intelligent fox.
I love this analogy.
It's so good. The idea is that you can't just run out into the woods and drop a cage on a smart animal. They'll just run away.
Right, they're too fast and too suspicious.
So you have to build it incrementally. So the trapper starts by just leaving a piece of meat on a tree stump in the middle of the woods.
And the fox is naturally suspicious.
Right.
It circles the bait for days, relying on its instincts. But eventually, the biological drive, the hunger, it overcomes the suspicion.
Yeah, it's a free meal.
Exactly. And the fox eats the free meal.
Then the trapper comes back and builds just one single wooden wall next to the stump. Lays out more bait.
And the fox is spooked again.
Right. Spooked by the new structure, stays away for a bit. But again, a week goes by, the memory of the free, easy meal is too strong, and the fox returns to eat next to the single wall.
Because it still feels open and safe.
Exactly. So week after week, the trapper adds a second wall at a right angle, then a third.
Slowly closing it in.
The process takes months. The fox gets so accustomed to this routine, so comfortable with the reliable source of food, that it completely ignores the architecture being built around it.
It just becomes part of the scenery?
Yeah. Until one day, the fox is just happily eating inside a nearly closed wooden box, and the trapper simply walks up and swings the gate shut.
It is a sobering metaphor.
Very.
Because it maps so perfectly onto the last century of labor history. We are the fox.
Wow, yeah?
And the industrial age was the trapper. It took generations to perfect this enclosure.
So what was the bait for us?
The bait was the steady paycheck, the pension, the promise of upward mobility, even just the societal approval of having a respectable job.
Right, making your parents proud.
Exactly. We were seduced by that bait. And slowly, the walls of the modern corporate structure were built around us.
And once we were inside the enclosure, the gate was shut. The walls were made of physical limitations. Like, you couldn't reach a market without a distributor.
Right.
You couldn't manufacture anything without millions of dollars in factory capital. You couldn't be heard without a publishing house or a television network.
The barriers to entry were massive.
Huge. We traded our freedom, our autonomy for the safety and the reliable food source inside the pen.
But here's the thing.
Yeah, the author brings up a massive twist here.
Huge twist.
The twist isn't that we are stuck in the pen. The twist is that the pen is gone.
The shift from the industrial economy to what the author calls the connection economy has systematically dismantled the fence.
I want to pause here because this is a crucial mechanism to understand. When we say the connection economy dismantled the fence, what does that actually mean on a mechanical, day-to-day level?
Good question.
Like, what specific barriers have vanished?
The primary barrier that vanished was the cost of distribution. and the reliance on gatekeepers.
Okay, break that down.
In the industrial age, if you had an idea, a product, or a piece of art, you needed immense capital to physically create it. And then you needed a massive logistics network to put it in front of consumers.
Trucks and warehouses and retail shelves.
Exactly. That was the fence. The gatekeepers held the keys to the factory and the delivery trucks.
Right.
But the internet and the decentralized communication networks that make up the connection economy, they drove the marginal cost of distribution to practically zero.
So if I write a piece of software or record a song or develop a new consulting framework,
Yeah.
it costs me exactly the same amount to share it with one person as it does to share it with 1 million people.
Yes. The means of production are now owned by the workers.
Just a laptop and Wi-Fi.
A laptop and an internet connection are the new factory. You no longer need the publisher or the record label or the corporate middle manager to grant you permission to create value or reach an audience.
That's wild.
The physical walls of the Fox's pen have literally rotted away.
But that creates an incredibly bizarre psychological dynamic, doesn't it? Oh, completely.
Because if the physical barriers are gone, if the fence is literally dismantled and we are standing in the middle of the open woods, why are we still huddled in the center of where the pen used to be, waiting for someone to drop bait on the stump?
Because the trap is no longer physical. The conditioning was so thorough and it lasted for so many generations that the trap is now entirely psychological.
It's all in our heads.
We still feel the invisible boundaries.
Yeah.
We have internalized the rules of the factory so deeply that we enforce the boundaries on ourselves now.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of those invisible fence systems people use for their dogs.
Well, that's a perfect comparison.
Right. You bury the wire, put the collar on the dog, and if the dog crosses the line, it gets a shock.
Right.
But what happens after a few months? The battery in the collar dies, or the power to the wire gets cut, but the dog never leaves the yard.
Never.
The dog has learned the exact perimeter of the yard and simply sits there, terrified to cross a line that doesn't actually have any power anymore.
We are sitting inside a deactivated, invisible fence.
That is the exact dynamic.
Yeah.
And the realization that the power has been cut is simultaneously terrifying, but also profoundly empowering.
Because it means you can just walk out.
Exactly. The boundaries holding you back from doing meaningful work are no longer systemic. They're cognitive.
Yeah.
The gate is wide open, and you have a unique historical opportunity to step out of the yard.
Which naturally leads to the most daunting question. If the fence is gone and the open woods are available to us, what exactly are we supposed to be out there?
Right. There's no manual for the woods.
No manual. The author's answer to this is that we are supposed to make art. But he frames this with a very specific, almost uncomfortable warning.
He does. He is very explicit about his own discomfort in writing this section of the text.
Yeah.
He intentionally tries not to smooth out the edges for the reader. Like he refuses to give a 10-step checklist on how to navigate the open woods.
Because a checklist is just another set of instructions.
Exactly. And the entire premise is that following instructions is what got us trapped in the first place. You can't use instructions to escape an instruction-based trap.
Right. He relates it to a green eggs and ham approach.
Yes, the Dr. Seuss book.
Yeah. He's asking the reader to step out of their comfort zone and taste a completely different way of working, knowing full well that adults are notoriously stubborn.
Oh, we are the worst.
We are. We react just like the character in the book. We say, I do not like the scary new freedom. I want my predictable paycheck and my clear job description.
They do not like them, Samaya.
Right. We resist it because it tastes unfamiliar, and unfamiliarity feels like danger to our lizard brains.
It feels like risk.
But if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a listener right now, I really have to challenge this concept of making art.
Okay, let's challenge it.
Because it is very easy for a best-selling author or a tech founder to talk about making art.
Sure.
But what about someone who has spent 20 years as a logistics coordinator or an HR manager or a corporate accountant?
Right. Highly structured jobs.
Yeah. How does someone in a highly structured, traditional role suddenly start making art without sounding completely out of touch with reality, or worse, losing their livelihood?
That is the most common friction point with this material. And it requires a total redefinition of what art means in the context of the connection economy.
Okay, redefine it for us.
We have to strip away the idea of canvas, paint, or sculpture.
It's not fine art.
No. The core assumption of the text is that you already know how to be human. Therefore, you already possess the capacity to make art.
So what is it, practically?
In this context, art is simply the human act of doing work that matters, creating a connection, or solving a problem when there is no map to follow.
Okay, so it's about emotional labor and taking responsibility rather than just executing a task.
Exactly. Let's look at your example of the corporate accountant.
Yeah, let's do that.
The compliance-based accountant comes in, runs the macros on the spreadsheet, generates the monthly report, emails it to the boss, and goes home.
Right, they followed instructions.
They followed instructions perfectly. But a machine will do that job in 5 years, if not sooner.
Yeah.
The accountant who's making art, on the other hand, looks at those same numbers, but they realize that a specific department is bleeding capital because of a flawed operational process.
They see the story behind the numbers.
Yes. And then they take the initiative to design a new economic model to solve it. They schedule a meeting with that department head. They navigate the complex human emotions and egos involved, and they persuade them to change course.
And there was no instruction manual for that.
None. It required empathy, it required risk, and it required original thought. That is art.
That makes total sense. And for like a customer service representative, the compliance model is just reading off the mandated script when a customer calls in angry.
Right. I'm sorry you feel that way, sir. Here is policy section 4B.
Exactly, which usually just makes people angrier.
Almost always.
But the art is recognizing that the script isn't working, ditching it, and using genuine human empathy to de-escalate the situation. Like turning a furious caller into a lifelong advocate for the brand.
Yes. It's working without a map. It's speaking up in that boardroom when there is no obvious right answer.
Yeah.
It is bringing your unwatered down, authentic human self to the interactions you have every single day.
It's being human.
And the profound takeaway from the text is that you do not need to go to a seminar to learn how to do this.
You don't need a certificate.
You don't need a certificate. You only need permission. And since the gatekeepers are gone, the only person who can grant you that permission is yourself.
That makes the transition incredibly personal. It was not about, quitting your job and moving to a cabin in the woods to paint.
Right. Please don't do that.
It's about staging micro-rebellions within your current environment.
Micro-rebellions. I love that.
Yeah, it's about testing the perimeter of that invisible dog fence and realizing you don't get shocked when you step over the line.
You might get a weird look.
Yeah. You get a slightly weird look from your boss at first, but then usually you get respect because you actually contributed something of value instead of just keeping the seat warm.
And this ties back directly to why the transition is so uncomfortable. When you just follow instructions, you are completely absolved of responsibility.
Right. If it goes wrong, it's the system's fault.
Exactly. If the spreadsheet fails, you can say, well, I used the template you gave me. Not my fault.
Right.
But when you make art, when you design a new solution or offer a novel insight, you own it.
Yeah.
If it fails, the failure is yours. That vulnerability is the price of admission to the connection economy.
It's the trade-off.
You are trading the false security of compliance for the genuine leverage of taking responsibility.
Wow. Okay, let's just synthesize all these threads we've pulled today.
Let's do it.
If we look at the entire narrative arc of these opening pages, the core insight really is profound. For generations, the industrial age systematically built a psychological cage around us.
Wall by wall.
Wall by wall. They used the incredibly seductive bait of steady pay, job security, and societal approval. And we have to admit it worked beautifully for a long time.
It built the modern world.
It did. But it also turned us into highly efficient, compliant workers who sit in boardroom silence, hiding our best, most innovative insights because our internal censor is terrified of the consequences of standing out.
But the tectonic plates of the global economy have shifted permanently.
Right.
The internet and the resulting connection economy have completely dismantled the physical walls of that cage. The cost of distribution is zero. The gatekeepers have lost their keys.
They really have.
Yeah.
The overarching truth here is that you don't need to learn how to be a human being again.
You already know.
You already know how to connect, how to care, and how to create value. You just need the courage to look around and realize that the invisible fence is deactivated.
Yeah.
You have to stop sitting in the waiting room of your own career, hoping someone in authority calls your name. The path forward requires stepping into the necessary intentional discomfort of making your art.
Which is doing work that matters, without a map and without a guarantee of success.
Exactly.
It is the only reliable way to build a resilient career and a meaningful life in a post-industrial world.
The fence is gone, but, that leaves us with a fascinating dilemma.
What's that?
Well, if the old enclosed yard is gone, Where exactly is the new safe place to stand?
Ah,
We've all heard the myth of Icarus, right? The boy who was warned not to fly too close to the sun because his wings would melt.
you're right, the ultimate cautionary tale.
Exactly, is the ultimate cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and not following instructions. But what if the story we have been told our whole lives is incomplete?
Oh, it definitely is.
What really happens to Icarus if he ignores his father's other piece of advice and flies too low?
That's the real question.
It is. We will uncover the forgotten, hidden half of the Icarus myth in our next deep dive. I think we all pretty much know the story of Icarus.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like the ultimate cautionary tale. He and his dad are trapped in this labyrinth. So the dad, Daedalus, he builds these wings out of wax and feathers so they can fly away and escape.
Right, the classic Greek myth.
Yeah, but there's one rule. He tells Icarus, whatever you do, don't fly too close to the sun.
Because the wax will melt.
Exactly. But of course, Icarus gets arrogant. He's having a great time. He ignores the warning, the wax melts, and he plummets into the sea. And that's the story we all grew up with. It's this universally understood warning against hubris, like, flying too high will destroy you.
Right, don't get a big head.
Yeah, but what if society deliberately erased the second half of that warning?
It's crazy to think about.
Right, like a half that completely changes the entire meaning of the myth.
Yeah.
And it actually perfectly explains exactly why so many of us feel, I don't know, completely stuck and exhausted in our careers right now.
Yeah, it completely shifts our understanding of ambition. I mean, we've basically based our entire societal navigation system on a redacted story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we've been paying the price for generations.
So in this deep dive, we are going to be unpacking the foundational ideas from the opening sections of Seth Godin's book, The Icarus Deception. We're exploring this massive hidden rift between what makes us feel comfortable and what actually keeps us safe in today's connection economy.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
And for anyone interested in business or entrepreneurship or even just, taking control of your own career, understanding this shift is basically the ultimate shortcut to ditching those outdated mindsets and finally doing work that genuinely matters.
Absolutely. Because the industrial age has faded, right?
Yeah.
But the psychological baggage it left behind is still completely directing our daily decisions.
So true.
And to clear that out, we have to go back to the scene of the crime, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have to look at the editing of that Icarus myth.
Okay, let's look at what was actually removed because I found this fascinating. The original myth wasn't just a warning about flying too high. Daedalus actually gave a two-part instruction.
Right.
He told Icarus not to fly too close to the sun, yes, but he also explicitly warned his son not to fly too low.
Which is the part we never hear.
Never. He said, do not fly too close to the sea because the moisture from the water will ruin the lift in your wings. Like, the water will make the feathers heavy and you will crash.
And honestly, that second half is arguably the much more prevalent danger in our lives.
Yeah.
Yet at some point in our recent history, we collectively just decided to drop it from the curriculum. We stopped telling our kids about the danger of the sea, and we just hyper-focused on the danger of the sun.
And it wasn't an accident, right? Like, Godin points out that the industrialists of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they needed a very specific type of workforce.
Oh, they definitely did. They didn't need artisans. They didn't need mavericks.
No.
They needed compliance.
Right. They needed people to just punch a clock, follow the instruction manual to the exact letter, and most importantly, not ask questions.
Exactly. So by elevating hubris,
Yeah.
Flying too high, turning that into a cardinal sin, they kept workers in line.
It's almost sinister when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
They engineered a culture that was terrified of standing out or making a ruckus. All while conveniently ignoring that, settling for too little is a far more common failing for most people.
It was a brilliant, albeit kind of manipulative feat of social engineering.
Yeah, I mean, when you build an entire economic system around mass production and efficiency, predictability is your most valuable asset.
Right. You want the assembly line to just keep humming.
Exactly. The last thing a factory owner wants is a worker having some kind of creative epiphany on the assembly line. That halts production.
Right.
So the culture was molded to reward flying low. Just keep your head down. And the tragedy is that we internalized this so deeply that we brought it with us into the modern era, long after all those factories closed.
Yeah, and reading that, it just perfectly describes this modern corporate malaise that everyone talks about. we are so terrified of getting fired for being too bold or like stepping out of line that we willingly accept this low-grade, just throbbing ennui.
Throbbing ennui. That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it.
Right. We just skim the sea, we get a little wet, our wings feel heavy, we feel totally uninspired, but we think we're doing the right thing.
Because flying low feels incredibly safe.
It really does. I mean, I want to push back on this a little because flying low, you get your paycheck, you go home at 5 o'clock, you don't rock the boat, nobody's yelling at you. It feels like the smart conservative play if you just want a stable life.
It does feel safe, yes. But that feeling is essentially a ghost from a dead economy.
Wow.
It is far more dangerous to fly too low than too high today, specifically because that illusion of safety just lulls you to sleep.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yet when we settle for low expectations, we guarantee ourselves a life of producing way less than we're actually capable of. And the psychological toll of that over 10, 20, maybe 30 years is devastating. You basically become numb to your own potential.
You essentially practice being invisible until you actually disappear.
Exactly. And you aren't just shortchanging yourself. Think about all the products that didn't get built, or the inefficient systems that never got fixed.
Oh, yeah, or the art that didn't get made because highly capable people were just too busy playing it safe.
Right. Godin is arguing here that aiming low is no longer a strategy for survival. It is a massive hidden risk.
Okay, but if that low altitude is actually a trap, why is it so incredibly hard for us to just pull up on the yoke and fly a bit higher?
Because we've conflated two very different concepts. We've confused the comfort zone with the safety zone.
Oh, okay. Let's dig into that.
For a century, those two zones overlapped perfectly. If you were in your comfort zone, keeping your head down, doing exactly what your manager told you, you were also in your safety zone.
Right, you got the pension, you got the gold watch at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Obedience literally paid your mortgage.
But the connection economy completely severed that overlap. The safety zone moved, but our internal comfort zone stayed exactly where it was.
Yes.
And the book uses this incredible metaphor about catching a fox in the woods to illustrate this. And honestly, I think it captures the absurdity of our current situation so perfectly.
It is such a brilliant image. So if you want to catch a wily fox, a regular cage won't work. The fox is way too smart for that.
Right, he'll just sniff it out and walk away.
Exactly. So instead, you build an 8-foot-long wooden fence just out in the middle of the woods. You lay out some bait next to it, and you leave.
And at first, the fox avoids it.
Right. But eventually, the hunger wins out, and he goes up and eats the bait. Then the next week, you build a second length of fence at a right angle to the first one.
Yeah.
You put out more bait. The fox hesitates a bit, but then he eats.
He's getting used to it.
Yep. By the fourth week, you've built a complete enclosure with a gate. The fox is happily prancing inside, completely accustomed to this safe space, just eating the bait. All you have to do is walk up and shut the gate.
Man, and we are the fox.
We are absolutely the fox. The industrial age spent 100 years building that enclosure around us. They used decent pay, predictable benefits, societal approval. That was all the bait.
And they kept us inside with the threat of shame, like the fear of being the outcast who flew too close to the sun.
Exactly. But the twist in this metaphor, and this is the crucial part, is that today, as the industrial age collapses, the fence has actually been dismantled. The enclosure is completely gone.
Right. The walls are down, the gate is wide open, but the fox doesn't leave.
No, because we have been so thoroughly conditioned by the bait and those invisible boundaries that we just stay huddled together in the middle of the open woods.
Yeah.
We're sitting there waiting for instructions in a cage that no longer exists.
Think about how this plays out in a normal office setting. Like, I was thinking about this when I read it. Imagine you're at the end of a long, grueling strategy meeting. The project is struggling, and the moderator looks around a room full of highly trained, well-paid, respected professionals and asks, "Hey, does anyone have any suggestions?"
And what happens?
Dead silence.
Yep.
People suddenly find their cuticles really interesting. They stare at their notebooks. We literally wait until the meeting is completely over to whisper our brilliant ideas to a coworker out in the hallway.
It's so true.
Our comfort zone dictates silence because speaking up feels like stepping outside that enclosure. It feels dangerous.
And the irony is that the silence is entirely self-induced. The moderator genuinely needs a solution. The market demands new ideas. Maintaining the status quo in that room doesn't protect your job anymore. It actually makes you expendable. The new safety zone is out in the open woods. It requires innovation, vulnerability, and the never-ending creation of deeper personal connections. But because that feels deeply uncomfortable, we retreat back to the ghost of the cage.
Okay, so a practical takeaway here for a listener. Tomorrow morning, when I sit down at my desk and look at my task list, I shouldn't just be checking off the easy, comfortable boxes. I need to actively audit where I am seeking comfort over safety.
Absolutely.
If I'm not feeling a little bit restless or, if I haven't risked failing at something recently, I'm probably hovering in a dangerous zone. I have to force myself to become comfortable with creating change.
That is the necessary paradigm shift. If you want to survive the connection economy, your comfort zone has to evolve to match the new safety zone.
Yeah.
And that means you have to fundamentally change what it is you think you produce for a living. You are no longer producing obedience or just mere competence. According to Godin, you are supposed to be producing art.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first read that, my mind immediately went to the stereotype. I pictured a slightly crazed Salvador Dali painting melting clocks or, Jackson Pollock just throwing paint at a canvas.
Right, that's what we all picture.
We have this heavily guarded cultural definition of an artist as someone who lives in a studio and wears a smock and is very moody. But Godin leans on Oscar Wilde's definition, which completely shatters that stereotype.
It really does.
Wilde said art is something that is new, complex, and vital. Art is the uniquely human act of creating something that touches another person.
I love that. It democratizes the entire concept of the artist. Art is not something made by artists. Artists are simply people who make art.
Right.
It's an attitude. It's an approach to your work, regardless of what the actual work is. And to understand why businesses and careers desperately need this now, we really have to look at the macroeconomic shift in what is actually scarce.
Oh, yeah. Let's map that out because this clicked so much for me.
Sure. So in the agricultural age, land was scarce. Then in the industrial age, physical labor and capital were scarce. You paid for a person's sweat and their physical effort. But today, physical resources and basic competence are abundant.
Yeah, if I hire you for a corporate role, I just assume you know how to use the software. I assume you're going to show up on time and answer your emails.
Right.
Quality and competence are just the gist line now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't give the electric company a standing ovation when the lights turn on. We just expect it.
Right.
Mere competence has been completely commoditized. You can outsource it for a fraction of the cost, or you can automate it with software.
Or AI.
Yeah, especially AI. So what is truly scarce now, the only thing that retains high value, is the emotional labor of art.
And what does that look like in a practical sense?
It's the willingness to dig deep, to surprise someone. It's the patience to build actual trust. And it's the guts to stand up and say, I made this and I think it matters.
Wikipedia is such a perfect example of this shift.
Right.
Like, we used to pay thousands of dollars for a set of encyclopedias because correct answers were scarce. You actually needed the physical books in your house.
Those massive volumes.
Yeah, but now correct answers are free and infinite.
Yeah.
We don't pay for facts anymore. We pay for insight, for surprise, for connection. You can outsource a spreadsheet, but you cannot outsource genuine human enthusiasm.
Which means we really have to demystify the artist. We have to stop treating them like these magical, untouchable beings. They're fairly normal people who have just decided to concentrate their emotional labor where it actually counts, rather than wasting it on trying to fit in.
Steve Jobs is a really fascinating case study in this. The guy wore the exact same black turtleneck and jeans every single day of his life.
Oh yeah, the uniform.
Yeah, and people thought it was just a quirky fashion statement, but it was actually a profound energy management strategy. He didn't want to waste a single ounce of his decision-making power, his emotional labor, on something as trivial as picking out a shirt in the morning. He hoarded that scarce energy for his art, which was designing technology that connected with people on a really visceral level.
And that completely changes how you view your own job title. Your job is just a venue. Think of it like a paintbrush. A paintbrush is just a tool. It isn't the art itself. The canvas is not the art.
So the spreadsheets aren't the art.
No. Whether you are a programmer, a middle manager, a barista, or a flight attendant, the venue doesn't dictate your ability to make art. Your art is the specific dignity, the insight, and the connection that you bring to that venue.
So the goal isn't to be the most compliant employee or, the fastest typist. It's to pivot your energy toward that emotional labor because it's the only thing that scales and can't be replaced by a machine.
Exactly.
But let's be honest here. Calling yourself an artist in a spreadsheet job takes a level of audacity that most of us are aggressively trained to suppress. Which brings up this really cool Japanese concept the book introduces, kamiwaza.
Yes, kamiwaza. It loosely translates to godlike behavior.
Mm.
And in the context of the connection economy, it means acting with the profound hubris to attempt something without a guarantee. It is the audacity to say, I am going to make this, it might not work, and I'm going to do it anyway.
This might not work. Those 4 words are so terrifying.
They are.
It feels completely irresponsible. I mean, my brain immediately pushes back on this. How can you tell a smart, ambitious professional to just abandon the outcome? Like, we have mortgages to pay. We have quarterly performance reviews. We live in a system built on what Godin calls dancing monkey treats, grades, bonuses, promotions, social media likes. You do a trick, you get a peanut. How can we possibly just ignore the peanuts?
Well, it is the hardest part of the transition, undoubtedly, because the industrial deal was entirely transactional. Do this, get that. Put tab A into slot B, and you receive your paycheck on Friday.
Right. Very straightforward.
But the artist's deal is fundamentally different. Now, it doesn't mean you don't care about paying your mortgage or succeeding. Detaching from the outcome is really about the sequence of events.
The sequence. Okay, what do you mean by that?
It means you don't let the demand for immediate applause dictate the creation of the work itself.
Okay. So if I'm designing a new product or I'm writing a strategy memo and I am constantly watering down my ideas in real time just to make sure my boss won't critique it, I've already failed.
Yes.
I've stripped the art out of it just to guarantee a safe, comfortable outcome.
Precisely. If you are constantly looking over your shoulder while creating, trying to manipulate the audience to guarantee applause, you aren't making art. You are pandering. You're just doing a job.
And people can tell.
Oh, the market can smell pandering a mile away.
Yeah.
The rewards for art are not present at its creation. You have to make the thing first, independent of the feedback. Only after you launch it, only after you ship it, do you actually gather the feedback.
You take your work and move it from here to there with nothing but daring and faith. That is kamiwaza, acting with the confidence of a god. And not because you think you are flawless, but because you are bold enough to create without a guarantee. If you are 100% certain a project is going to work, there is no tension. There's no art. It's just a repetitive task.
But the second you try to adopt that this might not work mindset, your biology is going to violently intervene.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the moment you decide to practice kamiwaza, internal alarm bells are going to start ringing louder than you can imagine.
Which brings us to the absolute biggest roadblock every artist faces, the resistance. We can philosophize about adopting a godlike mindset all day, but we are still operating with a very primitive piece of hardware in our skulls.
We are. Evolution endowed us with a very useful, but now mostly obsolete, survival mechanism. Our lizard brain, the amygdala, is basically a built-in worst-case scenario generator.
And its entire job is to amplify the threat of rejection.
Exactly. If we go back a few thousand years, being rejected by the tribe meant you were cast out onto the savannah alone. And isolation meant death, either by predators or starvation.
Right.
So the lizard brain evolved to make us absolutely terrified of standing out or offending the pack. Today, you obviously aren't on the savannah. You are just about to pitch a new idea in a Zoom meeting.
Right, very different stakes.
But the worst-case scenario generator fires up with the exact same intensity. It tells you that if this pitch fails, you will be fired, you will be ruined, you'll be a laughingstock, and your life is essentially over.
And the physiological response is identical, like the cold sweat, the racing heart, the desperate urge to stall, or just like check your email one more time instead of hitting send.
Yes. And many self-help books frame this as a battle. Stephen Pressfield famously wrote The War of Art, which is a phenomenal book, but Godin offers a slight pivot on that framing. He argues that you cannot fight a war against the resistance because you cannot win.
Because it's literally part of your brainstem. You can't amputate it.
Exactly. Fighting it to the death is foolish and exhausting because it will always be there. So instead of fighting it, you have to partner with it.
Okay, I want to use an analogy here because this was a light bulb moment for me. I look at the resistance like a metal detector.
Oh, I like that.
Imagine you are walking on the beach with a metal detector and suddenly it starts beeping wildly. If you don't know what it is, you might treat that bip as a warning siren, like, danger, stop walking, turn back.
Right, something is wrong.
Yeah, but if you are a treasure hunter, that beep is exactly what you were looking for. The louder the resistance gets, the more anxiety you feel about publishing your work, the closer you are to the treasure.
That framing completely changes your relationship with fear. The resistance becomes a compass.
Yes.
If you don't feel the resistance in your daily work, it means you are coasting in your comfort zone. It means you aren't doing anything new, complex, or vital. No art, no resistance.
And we have to get real about the worst case scenarios we invent in our heads, too. Like, oh, if I give a bad presentation, my career is over. Has that ever actually happened? Are people exiled from society for a bad PowerPoint?
Rarely, if ever.
Right. The punishment for an art project failing is simply that it disappears. People move on almost instantly. In the connection economy, the person who is punished is not the one who enters the arena and fails. It is the fearful person who refuses to connect at all. The real danger is the slow, quiet death of never leaping.
So when you feel that cold sweat, you have to acknowledge it as proof that you're about to do something that matters. You lean into the beep of the metal detector. But that is an incredibly difficult psychological pivot to make in real time. You don't just wake up one day immune to industrial conditioning.
Right. We can't just conceptualize our way out of 100 years of brainwashing. We need a new set of behaviors.
Yes.
You don't make art after you become an artist. You become an artist by ceaselessly making art. It requires rewiring the brain through daily habits.
And Godin outlines a specific set of practices to help flex these artistic muscles. They are deceptively simple, but incredibly hard to execute.
Let's go through them.
They are designed to systematically dismantle the industrial mindset. So take the first one, sit alone, sit quietly.
That sounds like a meditation retreat, but in practice, honestly, it is an act of sheer rebellion today.
Oh, totally.
We're so bombarded by noise and notifications and the constant demand to consume other people's content that just sitting in an empty room with your own thoughts is terrifying.
Most people reach for their smartphone within 30 seconds.
Easily. Sitting quietly forces you to actually hear your own internal voice instead of drowning it out.
And that ties directly into the next habit, which is learn something new with absolutely no apparent practical benefit.
I love this one.
It's a direct strike against that transactional, do this, get that mentality we were taught in school. We are so trained to only learn things that will be on the test or that will get us a promotion.
Like learning to play the ukulele or studying medieval architecture when you're a software engineer.
Right.
It feels like a waste of time to the industrial mind, but it trains your brain to be curious just for the sake of curiosity. It builds the lateral thinking required to connect disparate ideas, which is where art comes from.
Exactly. Then you have to look outward. The third habit is to ask individuals for bold feedback while aggressively ignoring what you hear from the crowd.
This one is so crucial because our instinct is always to ask the crowd. We want the mass validation.
We want everyone to like it.
But the crowd always wants you to fit in. The crowd wants average. If you focus on the crowd, you will water down your work until it offends no one, which means it will move no one. You need to find a single individual you trust, someone who understands your intent, and ask them for the hard truth.
And while you are seeking that feedback, the fourth habit is to spend time encouraging other artists. Connection creates more connection. The resistance is incredibly isolating. When you actively support others who are braving their own lizard brains, you normalize the culture of art for yourself. It builds a community of practice.
That makes a lot of sense. The fifth habit is to teach, but specifically with the intent of making change. Teaching isn't just reciting facts or handing out a syllabus. In the connection economy, teaching is about transferring a vision. It is trying to help someone else see the world slightly differently. If you can do that, you are practicing emotional labor.
And finally, the habit that makes all the others matter, ship something that you created.
Hit publish.
Yes.
Send the email, launch the product, make the presentation. If it stays in your notebook, it cannot connect with anyone, and therefore it isn't art, it's just a hobby. Shipping is the ultimate confrontation with the resistance.
These habits aren't just a checklist. They are a lifestyle shift away from chasing what is already established.
There is this historical anecdote the book mentions that captures this perfectly. It's the story of Columbus's egg. Have you heard this one?
I have, but tell it. It's so good.
It might be apocryphal, but the lesson is stunning. So after Columbus returned from discovering the New World, he was at a banquet with a bunch of elite naysayers. They were minimizing his achievement, giving him the classic resistance from the crowd. They were saying, well, the ocean was always there. It was inevitable. If you hadn't done it, someone else would have. It's no big deal.
Which is exactly what the lizard brain tells us when we see someone else succeed. Oh, that was easy for them, or it was bound to happen.
Exactly. We rationalize it. So Columbus doesn't even argue with them. He asks for a whole unboiled egg to be brought to the table. He looks at these nobles and says, "My lords, I will lay a wager that you are unable to make this egg stand on its end without any help."
Setting a little challenge.
Yeah. So they all pass the egg around, They try to balance it, they try to find the perfect center of gravity, and they all fail. They hand it back and declare that it is literally impossible. Columbus takes the egg, taps it gently on the table, breaking the shell just slightly at the bottom, and stands it flat on its end.
And the crowd is completely confounded.
Yeah. They say, well, we could have done that.
Right.
And Columbus says, yes, once the feat has been done, anyone knows how to do it. The point is, chasing is so incredibly easy. As soon as we see something done, the lizard brain relaxes.
Oh, that's so true.
We chase market leaders, we chase trends, we try to follow the blueprint, we spend all our energy trying to perfectly balance an unbroken egg just because we assumed those were the rules. The lesson of the connection economy is to stop chasing what others have already done. Find your own egg. Break it a little if you have to. Stop waiting for permission or waiting to be picked by some gatekeeper who hands you a map.
Because abundance thrives on new ideas, not on copying old ones. You can start flexing these artistic muscles in your current job tomorrow, just by changing your posture toward the work.
Man, if we pull all of these threads together, the core insight we are left with is pretty profound. The industrial age lied to us. It promised that conformity equals safety. It told us that if we kept our heads down, flew low to the sea, and followed the manual, the system would take care of us. But that enclosure has vanished.
It's gone.
In today's world, the only true safety lies in the vulnerability of making art.
You have to find that exact altitude that scares you just enough to know you are making a difference. You have to seek out the beep of the metal detector. Because settling for the comfortable, invisible path is actually the most dangerous thing you can do with your one and only career.
The revolution is tearing down the old framework, and the door is wide open for those willing to do the emotional labor of connecting. It leaves you wondering, though, if the industrial complex was able to alter a myth as foundational as Icarus for over a century just to keep us compliant, what other stories are we currently telling our children that are designed to keep them in a cage that no longer exists?
That is the million-dollar question.
Well, we'll uncover exactly how to dismantle those myths in our next deep dive. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are unpacking some really incredible source material. We're looking at Seth Godin's book, The Icarus Deception.
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
It is. And specifically, we're zeroing in on this massive societal shift that we are currently living through, moving out of the industrial age and plunging into what he calls the connection economy.
Right.
Which is this system where value isn't created by cranking out more physical widgets on an assembly line anymore.
Yeah, those days are pretty much over.
Exactly. Now it's about generating trust and sharing ideas and, linking people together. And to really understand the trap that we're currently stuck in and why we so desperately need to change our mindset, we actually need to look at a story that we all think we already know.
The Icarus myth.
The myth of Icarus. It's practically the universal cautionary tale, right? We all heard it in elementary school.
Oh yeah.
His father, Daedalus, who is this master craftsman, builds them both these incredible sets of wings out of feathers and wax.
So they could escape this high-security prison.
Right. And before they take off, Daedalus gives his son one very specific, very famous piece of advice. He says, don't fly too close to the sun.
But of course, Icarus doesn't listen.
Right. He gets completely intoxicated by the thrill of flight. He ignores the warning, he flies too high, the wax melts, and he tumbles into the sea and dies.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story, the one we've all been taught, is a stern warning against hubris. Don't be too ambitious. Don't disobey authority.
Right. Don't ever believe you have the ability to do what a god might do.
Exactly.
But here's what's so fascinating about that. It is a story that was explicitly designed to keep us in our place. Because society has completely altered that myth over the centuries.
We've been handed a very convenient, heavily edited version of the story.
We really have. I mean, we left out the entire second half of Daedalus's warning.
Yeah, so Daedalus didn't just tell Icarus not to fly too high.
Right.
He also explicitly warned him, don't fly too low. He told his son not to fly too close to the sea, because the moisture from the water would saturate the feathers, it would ruin the lift in the wings, and basically drag him down into the waves.
An industrial society is essentially brainwashed us to forget the water part.
Totally.
We've been conditioned by, generations of factory owners and corporate managers to be absolutely terrified of flying too high, of hubris, of standing out, of making a ruckus.
Because industrialists made hubris the cardinal sin. They desperately needed a compliant workforce.
Right. You can't run a 1920s textile mill if every single worker thinks they're a creative genius.
No, you just need them to pull the lever.
Exactly. But in enforcing that rule, they conveniently ignored that flying too low, settling, being obedient, staying invisible, is just as deadly.
It really is.
And in fact, in today's landscape, it is a far more common and dangerous failing.
Which brings us to the core tension of this deep dive. The whole premise here is that playing it safe, flying low to avoid getting burned by the sun, is now the most dangerous thing you can possibly do.
Without a doubt.
For anyone in business, any entrepreneur, or anyone who just wants their daily work to actually matter, the industrial age is over. It rewarded unquestioning obedience and factory-like productivity, but those days are just gone.
They're gone. And in the new connection economy, the willingness to break the rules, to create art, and to forge genuine human bonds, those are your only real safety nets now.
So our mission today is to kind of clean out that industrial conditioning that's been implanted in our minds. We're looking at pages 25 through 47 of the book, and we're going to build a blueprint for creating something truly valuable.
I love it.
And to do that, we have to start by looking at the trap we are currently sitting in. Because the source material uses this really fascinating illustration of catching a wily fox.
Right, the fox analogy. This is such a great visual. So imagine you need to catch a very smart, very cautious fox in the wild.
Okay.
You don't just drop a heavy steel cage on it. The fox is far too crafty for that. It will smell the metal, it'll sense the human interference, and it's just going to avoid it entirely.
It's too obvious.
Exactly. So instead, you build just one simple 8-foot section of a wooden fence, just one wall,
Yeah.
and you leave some bait near it.
And the fox probably avoids it for a few days, right?
Yeah.
But eventually the hunger wins out and it eats the bait.
Yep. Then a week later, you build a second length of fence at a right angle to the first,
Okay.
and you leave more bait. The fox is cautious again, but remember the easy meal from last time, so it comes back.
Right.
The next week, you add a third wall, more bait. By the end of the month, the fox is happily prancing inside this 3-sided enclosure. It's completely comfortable, completely focused on the free, predictable food.
Oh, wow. So it doesn't even realize what's happening.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And then all you have to do is walk up and close the fourth side with a gate.
The fox is trapped.
And it trapped itself, through gradual seduction.
Which is terrifying because we were the fox.
We absolutely were.
The trap wasn't built overnight. It took well over a century to perfect this industrial system. And the bait wasn't, raw meat in the words. The bait was the promise of a steady paycheck. Health benefits.
The corner office.
Yeah, a corner office, a gold watch at retirement. We were completely seduced by the apparent security of that enclosure.
Right.
And once we were inside, the industrialists shut the gate. They used the threat of shame, the fear of losing our prizes, and just this constant reminder that stepping out of line meant risking our entire livelihood.
But what's fascinating here is the profound tragedy and really the immense opportunity of our current moment, which is that the fence is actually gone.
Right.
The industrial age is fading rapidly. It's being replaced by the open, unpredictable reality of the connection economy.
Yeah.
The gate has been dismantled by the internet, by globalization, by AI. The walls are down.
But we don't act like it.
No, because we've been so thoroughly socialized and intimidated over the last 100 years, we haven't even noticed the walls are gone. We're literally still huddled together in the middle of the forest, staring at where the fence used to be, just waiting for someone to hand us our bait.
Okay, I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least ground it in a more modern scenario for a second.
Sure.
Think about that universally awkward moment at the end of almost every corporate meeting.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
The manager looks around the table and asks, does anyone have any fresh ideas on how to tackle this?
And it's just crickets.
Absolute deafening silence. People shuffle their papers, they look at their laptops, they avoid eye contact at all costs. Is it really the lingering ghost of the fence that's silencing them? I mean, couldn't it just be that they're overworked, exhausted, and they know that raising a hand just means getting assigned to another unpaid committee?
Well, burnout is definitely real. I'm not discounting that. But let's look at the deeper mechanism of why the committee is the default punishment for a new idea. The industrial system is explicitly designed to neutralize anomalies.
Right.
If you suggest a new idea, you might be wrong. If you're wrong, you bring shame on yourself, which in a strict industrial setting means you might get fired or demoted.
Yeah, you're a defective cog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you challenge the status quo, you're not being a compliant widget maker. And even if you are right, if your idea is brilliant, the system punishes you with more administrative burden, like that committee you mentioned.
To grind the creativity out of the
You
idea.
safely process the anomaly so it doesn't break the machine.
Hmm.
So we wait for the meeting to end, and then we whisper our actual brilliant ideas to a trusted colleague in the hallway where it's safe.
Oh, man, that is so true.
We do this because we've been trained to wait to be picked.
We really think we have to wait for the boss to anoint us or to win some sort of, art lottery before we are allowed to do our best work. If you're listening to this and you find yourself constantly waiting for permission to launch a project or to share a unique insight, you have to recognize that the barrier to your advancement isn't external anymore.
Not at all.
There is no factory owner limiting your output. The barrier is entirely self-imposed. The fence is gone.
It is. And stepping out of that imaginary enclosure requires a massive psychological shift in how we view safety.
Because we conflate safety with comfort.
Exactly. For our entire lives, we have operated under the deep illusion that what makes us comfortable is exactly the same as what makes us safe.
Okay, let's unpack this concept of the comfort zone versus the safety zone.
Okay.
I want the listener to just imagine two overlapping circles. One circle is your safety zone. Those are the actual actions and environments that keep you from harm, right? Like financially and professionally.
Right.
The other circle is your comfort zone, the things that feel easy, predictable, and anxiety-free.
The warm blanket.
Yeah. And for the last 100 years, those two circles perfectly overlapped.
They did.
Yeah.
Because getting a compliant, steady job at a factory or a middle management job in a massive corporation, that was deeply comfortable because it was so predictable.
You knew exactly what to expect.
You knew what time to show up. You knew what the manual said.
Yeah.
And it was deeply safe because the industrial economy rewarded that exact behavior.
Right.
You put your head down, you didn't make waves, and you were protected from economic ruin.
But the reality now is that the safety zone has physically moved.
It's completely shifted.
It is no longer overlapping with the comfort zone. The new safety zone is located entirely in the space of innovation, risk-taking, and impersonal connection.
Yes.
But our comfort zone, it stayed right where it was. It's still anchored in obedience and invisibility.
And the psychological friction that creates is immense. When the place of true safety moves, but your comfort zone doesn't, you end up clinging to behaviors that feel good but are actually destroying your future.
Give me a real-world example of that.
Think about Blockbuster Video.
Classic.
Their comfort zone was brick-and-mortar stores, right? Late fees, physical VHS tapes and DVDs. The smell of the popcorn on a Friday night.
It was a ritual for people.
It was highly predictable and highly profitable for decades. But when streaming technology emerged, the safety zone moved.
Right.
To survive, they needed to abandon their comfort zone and leap into the messy, untested waters of digital delivery. But they stayed in their comfort zone because it felt safe, right up until the literal moment they went bankrupt.
And meanwhile, Netflix is over there intentionally destroying their own comfortable DVD-by-mail business to jump into the new safety zone of streaming.
Exactly. They recognized the circles were separating.
It makes me think of learning to swim.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you are going to spend your life near the ocean, being able to swim is the ultimate safety zone.
Right, of course.
It is the only thing that will actually save your life if you fall off a boat. But when you are first learning to swim, like when you first jump into the deep end without a life jacket,
It's terrifying.
it is terrifyingly uncomfortable. Your instincts are screaming at you to get back to the edge of the pool. The edge feels comfortable, but it leaves you fundamentally unsafe if you ever find yourself in deep water.
That is a perfect analogy. The transition is inherently painful. Successful people in the connection economy are the ones who actively realign their comfort zone with the behavior that actually keeps them safe.
Right?
They train themselves to feel comfortable with the discomfort of the new safety zone. Because in a digital world, competence and compliance are the absolute cheapest commodities on earth.
Anybody can be compliant.
If you are doing predictable work, you can be replaced by a piece of software, or by an AI, or by someone overseas who's willing to do it for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
That comfortable place is now the most dangerous place you can be.
So if you go to work every day and you feel entirely comfortable, like if you aren't feeling slightly restless, if you aren't feeling a bit vulnerable, or if you haven't failed at something recently, that should be a massive red flag.
A huge red flag.
You are flying too close to the sea and the waves are going to catch you. To survive, you have to force yourself into the new safety zone, which means you have to start creating art.
And right there,
Yeah.
the moment you tell a business person or a coder or an accountant that their survival depends on making art, they immediately freeze.
They panic.
We have a severe definitional problem here.
We really do, because they picture themselves wearing a smock, holding a paintbrush, and they say, I can't paint. I'm not Salvador Dali. I don't have the genetics for that.
Right.
We have this deeply ingrained, romanticized, and frankly, super limiting definition of art as something that hangs in a gallery.
But it's a convenient excuse to hide.
How so?
If art is just painting or sculpture, then most of us are completely off the hook. We can just go back to our spreadsheets and say, well, I'm not an artist.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it lets us off the hook.
But Godin radically redefines it. He points out that sign art used to just be painting and sculpture, right? But then it evolved to include photography and computing and holography. And now it absolutely must include entrepreneurship, customer service, and leadership.
And the examples from the text that really illustrate this are from the world of conceptual art.
Yes.
Like, take John Cage. He wrote a piece of music called 4'33".
A famous piece.
Right. And it is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of absolute silence. The pianist literally sits at the piano, opens the lid, and does nothing.
Just sits there.
Or solo it. He creates art by just giving a museum a set of typed instructions on how to draw lines on a wall, and the museum staff actually do the physical painting. There are no traditional fine motor skills involved from the artists there.
And what Cage and Lewitt proved is that art is not about the physical craft. Art is a human posture.
Yeah.
It is a choice. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the definition we're working with here is that art is doing something for the first time, something uniquely human that touches another person.
It's personal.
It is personal, it is untested, and it is intended to connect. And because of that, it requires intense emotional labor. The true risk of art isn't financial ruin. The risk of art is rejection.
Wow.
It's the emotional vulnerability of looking someone in the eye and saying, here, I made this. Do you care?
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
It's easy to say a famous avant-garde composer is an artist. But if making a good spreadsheet is art, and being nice on the phone is art, doesn't the word just lose all meaning?
I hear that a lot.
Like, can a customer service rep taking calls in a headset all day really be an artist without diluting the concept of what art is?
It only loses meaning if we desperately hold on to the Renaissance definition of art. Godin is arguing for a behavioral definition because the connection economy has turned almost all business into show business.
Okay, unpack that.
So imagine that customer service rep. They have a script on their monitor. If they just read the script like a robot, they are a compliant factory worker.
Right.
And honestly, their job will soon be automated by an AI chatbot. It probably already is being automated.
Yeah, dial 1 for this, dial 2 for that.
Exactly. But if that rep deviates from the script, if they really listen to the frustrated caller, use their humanity to genuinely empathize and create a real, unscripted connection that diffuses the anger and solves the problem,
Yeah.
that is untested. That is personal. And that touches another human being. It required the emotional labor of putting down the shield of the script. That is art.
It's the emotional labor that defines it. There's an example of a doctor in the source material that hits on this perfectly.
Oh, right, the doctor.
A doctor who just mechanically prescribes pills based on a rigid flowchart is a technician.
Yes.
But a doctor who spends 25% of his time writing a blog, explaining complex, terrifying procedures in plain English, and easing the fears of patients he hasn't even met yet.
That doctor is making art.
He is doing something untested and personal.
Because competence is no longer a differentiator. It is assumed. When you buy a car, you assume the engine will start.
Sure.
When you go to a doctor, you assume they know human anatomy. Competence is cheap and easily accessible. What is scarce, and therefore highly valuable, is the unexpected. It's surprise. It's genuine human connection.
You have to stop using "I have no talent" as a place to hide.
Yes.
You don't need fine motor skills to make this kind of art. You need the courage to offer your humanity.
And that transition, from mechanical competence to vulnerable humanity, it's driven by the fundamental economic difference between the old world and the new one.
Right.
We are moving from an economy based on scarcity to an economy based on abundance.
This is the underlying physics engine of everything we are talking about today. The industrial economy was a zero-sum game.
Completely zero-sum.
It was built entirely on the scarcity of physical stuff and physical labor.
Think about it. If there is a limited amount of coal in the ground and my company mines it, your company can't have it. If there is limited shelf space at the grocery store and my product is sitting there, yours isn't. The industrial age was all about hoarding scarce physical resources, optimizing supply chains, and basically fighting over a fixed pie.
The classic illustration here from the text is the local pizza market.
Right.
If a street already has 3 successful pizza places, it is incredibly hard to open a 4th and sell more pizza.
Why is that?
Because human hunger doesn't scale. A person can only eat so much pizza in one sitting. The physical demand is hard-capped by our biology.
That makes perfect sense.
But the connection economy operates on completely different rules.
It operates on the abundance of connection. Think about network effects, right? Like a phone network. In the industrial mindset, if I have a physical phone, that's one less phone in the warehouse for you.
Right, scarcity.
But in a network, if I am the only person on Earth with a phone, it is a completely useless piece of plastic.
Yeah.
I can't call anyone. The exact moment you get a phone, my phone suddenly becomes valuable. The more people who join the network, the more valuable the entire network becomes for everyone involved.
It creates abundance.
Yes, we are utterly insatiable when it comes to connection. There is no biological cap on our desire to be understood, to be seen, and to belong to a tribe.
So if physical stuff is abundant and cheap now, because we can manufacture practically anything instantly, what is the new scarcity?
That is the million-dollar question.
What are the assets that actually command value in a world where everyone has a smartphone and a global publishing platform right in their pocket?
Godin outlines 6 specific, highly valuable new scarce assets.
Okay, let's hear them.
They are trust, permission, remarkability, leadership, stories that spread, and humanity.
Notice that none of those can be manufactured on an assembly line.
Exactly. You cannot build a factory that churns out trust at 100 units per hour. You cannot mandate remarkability in a corporate employee handbook.
Right.
Let's look at permission, for instance. In the industrial age, marketers used interruption. They bought TV ads to interrupt your favorite show. They bought billboards to interrupt your drive to work.
They just bought your attention with money.
Right. But in the connection economy, you have to earn permission. You have to create something so valuable, so generous, that a person willingly gives you their email address or follows your work because they actually want to hear from you.
They invite you in.
Yes. And you can't buy that with a supply chain hack.
And trust is the exact same way. How does a company actually build trust in a digital age? It is not through a slick PR campaign anymore.
We see right through those.
We do. It is through consistent, generous actions over time. You show up, you tell the truth, you deliver art, and you don't exploit the people who give you their attention.
The contrast is stark when you look at old industrial giants versus new connection-based organizations.
Give me an example.
Look at Detroit in the late 20th century, the auto industry. They had massive, perfect factories.
Yeah.
They had the physical infrastructure dialed in perfectly. The supply chain was a marvel.
Right.
But when they lost the trust and connection with their customers by producing uninspired, average cars for average people, those perfect factories couldn't save them.
No.
The buildings just sat empty. On the flip side, if you are a modern creator or a business that has spent years building deep trust and a loyal tribe of customers,
Yeah.
if your physical office burns to the ground tomorrow, you aren't ruined. Your tribe will wait for you. They will crowdfund your rebuild. Your real asset isn't the building or the inventory. The asset is the connection.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. It's incredibly ironic because if you go to the business section of a bookstore today, 90% of the books are still trying to sell you a map.
Oh, absolutely.
They are selling industrial tactics for a digital world. They tell you how to optimize your SEO or how to engineer a viral tipping point or how to, hack the algorithm.
And we flock to those books because we desperately want a step-by-step instruction manual.
Right, because manuals feel safe.
We want to know that if we just follow the recipe perfectly, we will definitely get the cake. We won't have to risk anything.
But tactics are completely empty without the guts to fly blind. You can know all the SEO tricks in the world, but if your content is boring and safe and lacks humanity, no one is going to care. The tactics are totally useless without the underlying art.
Which requires a fundamental inversion of how we approach our work. In the zero-sum industrial world, the driving question was always, what can I get?
Right.
How can I extract maximum value from my workers? How can I extract maximum profit from this single transaction? But in the connection economy, because giving to the network increases the value of the network, the question must become, what can I give?
So to actually execute this, to navigate this world without a map and figure out what to give, you have to become an impresario.
Yes, the impresario. Traditionally, an impresario was someone who organized a concert or an opera.
Like a promoter.
Sort of, but deeper. They didn't necessarily play the instruments, but they brought all the pieces together. In this context, an impresario is anyone who organizes the talented and connects the disconnected. They create a space for art to happen.
And to be a successful impresario, you need a very specific mindset. The text introduces a Buddhist concept that is incredibly profound here. It's also called prajna.
Prajna, yes.
Yeah.
It's the ability to accept reality exactly as it occurs, without filtering it through our biases, our fears, or our wishful thinking.
Right.
It's about seeing the world as it actually is, not as we want it to be or fear it to be.
Why is that radical acceptance so difficult when a business is facing technological disruption?
Because our identities and our livelihoods are usually tied up in the old way of doing things.
Yeah, in our comfort zone.
Exactly.
Hmm.
When we see the market shifting, our instinct is to force it back into our old industrial framework. When a new technology like AI disrupts an industry, what do the established players do?
They panic.
They want to sue it, or they ignore it, or they mock it as a passing fad. They lack prajna. Practicing prajna requires the emotional labor of admitting that the rules have permanently changed and that your old skills might no longer be the ones that keep you safe.
Alan Weber and Bill Taylor are a perfect example of this from the text. They were editors at the Harvard Business Review in the 1990s,
Right.
and there were dozens of brilliant, highly educated editors there. But Weber and Taylor used prajna. They looked at the rapidly shifting landscape of business, the rise of the internet, the breakdown of corporate hierarchies, and they saw the connection economy emerging.
They saw what was actually happening.
Right. And instead of trying to force those messy observations into the old, stuffy, peer-reviewed academic model of HBR, they accepted the reality of what business was becoming. So they left and they created Fast Company magazine.
Wow.
They organized the ideas, they connected this new generation of renegade leaders, and they became impresarios of a whole new movement.
And we see this exact dynamic in the arts as well. Look at David Byrne from the Talking Heads, or Peter Gabriel.
Okay.
By any industrial measure, they had won the ultimate lottery. They were at the absolute peak of the pop music machine in the 80s and 90s. Sold out arenas, platinum records, massive fame.
They made it.
They made it. And the industrial system demanded that they just keep turning the crank. Write another catchy pop anthem, do another massive stadium tour, maximize the profit margins.
But they hit the brakes.
They stopped. Because continuing on that path was no longer art. It was just manufacturing.
It was safe.
It was no longer a risk. So David Byrne walked away from the guaranteed pop success to produce obscure Brazilian music and write niche books.
Right.
Peter Gabriel walked away to start Witness, which was this groundbreaking human rights organization using video technology to document abuses. They detached completely from the industrial outcome, the money and the fame, so they could focus on the true measure of their work.
But let's introduce some real-world fiction here. How do you actually decouple from outcomes when you still have a mortgage to pay? Like, if you're listening to this and you're secretly terrified of making a mistake, how do you detach from the outcome without being completely irresponsible?
It's a totally fair question.
Hmm.
But it's not about ignoring your financial reality. It's about where you place your creative focus.
Okay.
If you try to make art while constantly anticipating the outcome, like asking yourself, will my boss like this? Will the critics approve? Will this post go viral and make me money?
Yeah.
You inevitably corrupt the art. You end up looking in the rearview mirror, trying to reverse engineer and copy what was safe and successful yesterday.
Which puts you right back in the comfort zone.
Which guarantees you will fail, because the connection economy ignores the boring and the predictable. Doing the work for the connection, rather than the immediate guarantee of success, is paradoxically the most financially sound strategy long-term.
That's wild.
The most rational thing you can do today is the seemingly irrational work of art. You sit quietly, you practice prajna to see the market as it actually is, and you start doing the scary work of connecting people.
We've covered incredible ground here today.
We really have.
We've dismantled the illusion of the industrial fence. We've moved the safety zone. We've expanded the definition of art to include emotional labor. And we've explored the mindset of the impresario. Let's pull all of this together into a cohesive synthesis.
This raises an important question, really. It all comes down to how you measure a life well lived or a job well done.
Right.
The industrialist has only one measure, and it is brutally mathematically simple. Did it make money?
Yeah.
Did you maximize productivity per hour? Did you get the promotion? Do you have more physical stuff in your garage than your neighbor? The industrialist focuses entirely on the external, quantifiable metric.
But the artist operates on a completely different frequency. The soul of this entire chapter, the core argument Godin is making, is that the true measure of your work in the connection economy is simply this. Did you touch someone?
Exactly. Did you create a genuine connection? When you spoke up in that meeting and broke the silence, did you shift the perspective of the room?
Yeah.
When you interacted with that frustrated customer, did you grant them dignity instead of just reading a policy? When you launched that new project, did it bring a scattered tribe of people together? If the answer is yes, then you made art.
And holding back your unique insight is actually a profound moral failure. If you have the capacity for emotional labor and you choose to stay silent because you are afraid of the waves, you are effectively stealing.
That's a strong way to put it, but it's true.
You are stealing from a world that desperately needs your specific contribution. We have enough obedient widget makers. We have enough AI algorithms to generate average content. What we have a desperate, aching shortage of is your specific, vulnerable humanity.
Which brings us to a final thought that kind of lingers in the background of this whole philosophy.
What's that?
It's the concept of impermanence. The text notes that the man who invented the ship also, by definition, invented the shipwreck.
Oh, wow. Because creating art means introducing something entirely new into the world, which carries inherent risk.
Yes. And that newness will eventually fade. The connection you make today might shift tomorrow. The project you launch will eventually become obsolete, or it might just fail spectacularly.
Right.
But that impermanence isn't a flaw. It is the essential nature of art. If art were permanent, there would be no room for the next piece of art.
The shipwreck makes room for the submarine.
Exactly. The fading of yesterday's art is exactly what demands that you wake up today and create something new. You have to embrace the impermanence of the outcome in order to find the courage to take the leap in the first place.
The fence is gone, the safety zone is moved, the water is waiting. But now that we know all of this intellectually, how do we actually deal with the gut-wrenching emotional reality of it?
That's the hard part.
Because the exact moment you decide to step out of the comfort zone and make art, you are immediately flooded with internal shame, crippling imposter syndrome, and a terrifying sense of vulnerability. How do we battle those internal demons? That is exactly what we are going to uncover in our next deep dive.
Have you ever thrown a silent tantrum because the line at the coffee shop was moving just a little too slowly?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, be honest. You're standing there tapping your foot.
Checking your watch.
Right, checking your watch, sighing heavily, basically treating the barista less like a human being and more like, I don't know, a malfunctioning vending machine.
Yeah, one that just won't dispense your caffeine fast enough.
Exactly.
It's the universal modern experience, really. We've all stood in that line silently fuming.
Oh, for sure.
Just kind of reducing the person behind the counter to a slow-moving obstacle in our day.
And we do it without even thinking about it. But what if that specific moment, that flash of impatience, where we completely erase the humanity of the person in front of us, what if that is actually a symptom of a much larger problem?
A much more expensive problem, too.
Right. Because in our rush to be, hyper-efficient, we're trading away our humanity.
Yeah.
And the deep irony here is that by treating people like cogs, we're actively destroying the exact type of connection that the modern economy actually rewards.
That's the crazy part. We think we're being efficient business people, but we're actually operating on an obsolete operating system.
Totally. So that is the core tension we're pulling apart today. We're drawing from Seth Godin's book, The Icarus Deception.
Such a good book.
It really is. And we're specifically zooming in on a chapter titled, Connection Begins with Dignity.
Right.
And Godin makes a really compelling case that the industrial mindset, this idea that people are just interchangeable, invisible gears in a machine, that it's now a failing strategy.
It's completely failing. Because whether you're an entrepreneur, a manager, or just someone trying to navigate a career, the new economy no longer hands out the biggest rewards to those who just, maximize efficiency.
Right. The premium is now on those who can create genuine human connection.
Exactly.
So let's get into the mechanics of this. Godin talks about this trap of the invisible servant.
Yeah, the invisible servant.
We are constantly surrounded by people who serve us for pay. Flight attendants, waiters, valet drivers, the postal clerk. And because the world moves at breakneck speed, and we often stressed or maybe just a little spoiled by one-click delivery, it is incredibly easy to treat these people as invisible automatons.
It is. We just interact with them solely to extract what we want and nothing more.
Right.
Think about the psychology of it. If an airline ticket costs a fortune, or if you've been standing in line at the DMV for an hour,
All the worst.
right, your cognitive load is high, you're frustrated. In that state, it feels effortless to push yourself away from the interaction.
Yeah, you just want to get it over with.
Exactly. You distance yourself from the person who's literally standing right there to help you.
Right.
You retreat into this bubble where they aren't a person, they're just a function.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
Because I get the psychological retreat, but realistically, isn't efficiency the whole point of those specific transactions?
Well,
I mean, look at self-checkout kiosks at the grocery store.
sure.
I love them. I scan my items, I bag them, I leave. We both save time. Why does the postal clerk or the barista need my undivided human attention?
That's a fair question.
Like, if I just need a stamp, why can't a transaction just be a transaction?
What's fascinating here is that treating a human like a kiosk breaks the fundamental mechanism of how value is actually created now.
Okay.
Let's look at it like a computer network. When computers communicate, they use a digital handshake.
Like a ping.
Exactly, a TCP IP ping. Computer A sends a signal to computer B.
Right.
If computer B doesn't send an acknowledgement packet back, the connection fails.
No data gets transferred.
Right, no data transfers. Eye contact and basic dignity are the human equivalent of that ping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you treat the barista like a coffee dispensing robot, you are actively refusing to send that acknowledgement packet.
You're just staring at your phone.
Right. You are slamming the door on any potential connection before it even starts because it's impossible to connect with the device. Connection only happens between people.
So by stripping the interaction down to pure efficiency, I'm ensuring that no actual relationship or loyalty can be built.
Precisely.
I'm getting the coffee, but I am leaving a massive amount of invisible value on the table.
And in a connection-based economy, destroying a bridge is just bad strategy.
Yeah.
Think about when a hotel is sold out and someone unleashes an internal or external tantrum on the front desk clerk.
Just going off on them because they can't magically produce a room?
Exactly. You're not just being rude in that moment. You're reverting to a factory floor mentality.
Right. You're acting as if this person is just a failing mechanism.
A broken widget on the assembly line of your vacation.
Wow. It's industrial entitlement.
That's a great way to put it.
We've been conditioned to expect the world to operate with the predictable precision of a machine.
We have.
So if eye contact and basic acknowledgement are so powerful, why did we stop doing it? Because it doesn't feel like an accident.
It wasn't an accident at all. We were completely trained to do this. Yeah. For the last 100 years, the industrial system heavily incentivized us to value efficiency, speed, and producing, more stuff over human connection.
Okay, so like Henry Ford.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Henry Ford didn't want his assembly line workers forming deep emotional bonds.
Right. He wanted them turning wrenches as fast as possible.
As fast as humanly possible. That was the industrial bargain we accepted as a society.
A bargain.
Yeah. The idea was give up a bit of your humanity, work like a robot, and in exchange, you'll get a house full of affordable consumer goods.
And Godin is making a pretty specific critique here. He's essentially pointing the finger at the invisible hand of the market for driving this race to the bottom.
He is. And we aren't taking a stance on free market capitalism here, but rather exploring Godin's specific argument that pursuing pure industrial efficiency carries a massive, massive hidden social cost.
Right. Whether you agree with his broader view or not, the underlying psychological point he's making about our behavior is fascinating.
It really is.
This relentless drive to make everything faster and cheaper has fundamentally hollowed out how we interact with each other.
The lens he is using just highlights that hidden social cost of pure efficiency. If the only goal of a business is to make a widget for 3 cents less than the competitor,
then yes, you want your workers to be as fast and robotic as possible.
Exactly. But the rules of the game have shifted. The market for cheap, fast, defect-free work is totally saturated.
Right. You can get that anywhere now.
Those things aren't scarce anymore, which means they don't drive massive value anymore. What's scarce now is humanity.
He uses this example about charity in the book that is, honestly, it's pretty uncomfortable to read.
Oh yeah, that part hits hard.
It really does.
Yeah.
But it perfectly illustrates this hollowing out. He points out that writing a check to a charity definitely helps solve physical needs.
Right.
But often, we write that check specifically to avoid having to look a person in need in the eye.
Yes. We use the money as a shield.
Exactly. So we don't have to engage with their humanity.
It perfectly separates the mechanical output from the human connection. The industrial mindset looks at that and says, well, what's the problem?
The money was delivered.
The food was bought, the system worked. But the connection mindset recognizes that while the physical need was met, the human being was entirely ignored.
We've optimized the transaction, but we've starved the relationship.
That is exactly it.
It's like we're outsourcing our compassion.
Yeah.
We want the result, that warm glow of having helped without the emotional labor of actually witnessing another person's reality.
Yeah.
It's like we've engineered the eye contact right out of our own morality.
Which brings us to the core shift Godin is advocating for here.
Right.
If the industrial age was built on stripping away personhood for the sake of speed, the new economy is built on explicitly granting personhood as the very foundation of your business.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text uses this word platform, which I think really clarifies it. When you humanize the person at the other end of the counter or, on the Zoom call or in the customer service chat, you grant them dignity.
Yeah.
And that dignity creates an entirely different platform for everything that happens next.
Think back to that digital handshake metaphor we talked about earlier.
The ping.
The ping. Until you send that ping and acknowledge their humanity, no real data can flow.
Wow.
You can have the most brilliant architectural design for your business. You can have the slickest sales pitch, the most flawless communication strategy.
Right.
But if you try to deploy that onto a platform where you haven't established basic human dignity first, the data transfer fails.
It just doesn't work.
The pitch falls flat, the customer leaves for a competitor who actually makes them feel seen.
It's like trying to build a skyscraper on a swamp.
Exactly.
Without the bedrock of basic human dignity and eye contact, any brilliant business plan you try to build on top of it will simply sink.
That's a great analogy, and this shifts our understanding of what a safe place in business really is.
Okay, what do you mean by safe place?
Well, the old safe place in the economy used to be compliance. Get a secure job at a big corporation, do what you're told, don't make waves, pull the lever, get a pension.
The dream of the 1950s.
Exactly. You didn't need to connect, you just needed to comply. But that safe place is eroding so fast.
Yeah, it's basically gone.
The guaranteed, purely mechanical job is essentially a myth now, because software and robotics can do compliance way better than we can.
That is so true. Software never gets tired of complying.
Never. So the new safe place actually requires doing what software can't do.
Which is?
Looking others in the eye and truly seeing them.
But emotionally, that feels much less safe.
Oh, it does.
Because it requires vulnerability. You have to extend yourself.
It feels incredibly risky.
Right. If I look the barista in the eye and try to have a genuine human moment, there's a real chance they just want to scan my app and move on to the next person.
You might be rejected.
I might be totally ignored.
That is the exact risk of the connection economy. It requires emotional labor.
Emotional labor.
Yes. Physical and intellectual labor, like pulling levers, crunching spreadsheet numbers, that was safe because it was impersonal and easily scalable.
Right.
Emotional labor is risky because it is intensely personal. But here's how it scales in a way that physical labor can't.
Okay, I'm listening.
It creates deep, irrational loyalty.
Wait. Unpack how emotional labor scales for me.
Sure.
Because if I spend 5 extra minutes connecting with one customer, I'm serving fewer customers overall in my day.
Mathematically, yes.
So mathematically, that looks like it scales worse, not better.
In a factory, scaling means making 1,000 widgets instead of 100.
Right.
But in a connection economy, scaling means creating a network effect.
A network effect.
If a barista does the emotional labor of making a genuine connection with you, you don't just buy a coffee.
I come back every day.
You come back every day, you tell your friends, you become an advocate for that shop.
I post about it online.
Exactly. A machine making coffee faster cannot generate that kind of compounding loyalty.
That's a really good point.
The text notes that we are insatiable consumers of connection.
Insatiable.
Yeah. If there are 3 pizza places on your street, you can only eat so much pizza. The physical hunger hits a limit pretty fast.
Unless you're a teenager.
Fair. But our psychological hunger to be understood, respected, and treated with dignity,
That never goes away.
that hunger is bottomless.
That makes a lot of sense. So granting personhood isn't just a nice, warm and fuzzy thing to do.
Not at all.
It's an actual strategy to feed a hunger that your competitors are completely ignoring because they're too busy optimizing their supply chains.
Exactly. It creates a bond of trust. And trust is the single most scarce asset in the modern marketplace.
Yeah.
Wow.
So before you pitch an idea, give a critique, or ask for a service, establish personhood first.
Send the human ping.
Send the human ping.
Yeah.
Take a second for genuine eye contact. because it completely changes the platform of the interaction from a mechanical transaction to a relationship.
Even if it's just a 30-second interaction, and setting that platform is what allows you to do what Godin considers the highest form of work.
Which he defines as art, right?
Yes.
This is where he completely redefines the word.
Yeah.
Because when most of us hear artist, we picture a painter in a studio or a musician on stage.
All right, fine art.
But he strips all of that away.
He argues that art isn't a medium. It's not oil on canvas, and it's not something sold in a gallery.
So what is it?
Art is the unique work of a human being that touches another person.
Oh, I love that.
It is the act of creating something new that matters to someone else that creates a bond.
Under that definition, connection isn't just a byproduct of the work. Connection is the ultimate metric of whether the work was successful at all.
Exactly. If you paint a masterpiece, but you lock it in a vault where it never touches another human soul.
Godin would argue it hasn't fulfilled its purpose as art.
Right, because no connection was made.
So how does this apply to our, daily corporate lives? Because I'm not painting masterpieces in my cubicle.
Well, he gives two incredibly mundane examples of what art looks like in the real world.
Okay.
The first is making a daring comment in a meeting.
Oh, man. We've all been in that meeting. The boss asks for new ideas, and the room goes dead silent.
You can hear a pin drop.
Everyone is staring at their laptops, trying to be invisible.
And that silence is the ultimate industrial response.
Right.
We've been trained by the factory mindset to hide, to avoid sticking our necks out, to ensure we don't hold up the assembly line with a weird idea.
So the artist in that room is the one who speaks up and breaks the silence.
Exactly.
But let's play this out for a second. Say I make the daring comment, and the boss immediately shoots it down.
Okay.
Under an industrial metric, I failed, right?
Mm.
I produced a defective idea.
Under an industrial metric, yes, you failed. But under the connection metric, the success of that comment isn't determined by whether the boss greenlights it.
So what's the metric?
The metric is, did it change the energy in the room? Did it give someone else permission to speak up? How many people are able to leverage your comment, build on it, or even debate it?
Did your vulnerability create a bridge between the people in that room?
Exactly. If it did, you created art.
That is such a powerful reframe.
Oh.
So what does this all mean for success? What was the second example he gives?
The second example is a local farm stand.
Okay.
People flock to this stand not necessarily because the produce is scientifically superior to what is in the grocery store.
Right. A tomato is a tomato.
Right. They go because they can get enough of the excitement, the fellowship, and the engagement the team brings to a place where it didn't used to live.
The tomatoes are just the commodity.
Yeah.
The fellowship is the art.
Exactly.
I have to challenge the economics of this a little bit, though.
Go for it.
In a high inflation environment, if the grocery store tomato is $2 and the farm stand tomato is $6,
Yeah.
am I really going to pay a 200% premium just because the farmer made eye contact and asked about my day?
You might not pay it for the tomato itself, but you will pay it for the experience of feeling human.
Really?
Think about it. This is why coffee shops can charge $6 for a latte you could make at home for 50 cents.
Oh, that's true.
People are paying a premium for the environment, the interaction, the feeling of being a regular somewhere.
Right.
In the modern economy, defect-free is just the baseline.
It's expected.
We expect the tomato to be ripe. We expect the website to load instantly. We expect the car to start. Quality is assumed.
Yeah.
You cannot build a massive premium on just being defect-free anymore. You can only charge a premium for what is unexpected, scarce, and human.
That completely flips how you evaluate a workday.
It really does.
Because if you're playing the industrial game, your metrics are totally quantitative.
Right. How many emails did I clear out of my inbox?
How many tickets did I close? How many boxes did I check on my to-do list?
Exactly. But if you're playing the connection game, the artist's game, your metrics are qualitative.
So I should be asking, how much genuine connection did I make today?
Who did I touch with my work? Did I grant personhood to the people I interacted with?
It really makes you wonder how much loyalty, innovation, and actual money businesses are leaving on the table.
So much.
Simply because they've engineered the human ping, the eye contact, out of their workflows in the name of speed.
It requires a profound shift in mindset. You have to move from asking, what can I extract from this interaction as quickly as possible?
Right.
To asking, what can I give to this network?
What can I give?
Because in a connection economy, the value of the network increases for everyone the more deeply connected its nodes are.
Tying all of this together, the real soul of this chapter is the realization that connection is not some optional soft skill,
No, not at
not a seminar you send your HR department to once a year.
Yeah.
It is the absolute core currency of the modern economy.
It is the currency. And it obeys very strict laws.
Like what?
Well, it cannot be automated with a slick software update. You can't hack it with an algorithm.
And you certainly can't buy it with a massive advertising budget.
Exactly. It requires actual human friction.
It only unlocks when we intentionally step out of that comfortable industrial conditioning.
We have to stop retreating into our phones when a line gets long.
Yes. We have to stop treating service workers like vending machines. We have to offer dignity first, even when it's inconvenient.
Because without that initial dignity, you have no platform.
Right.
Without the platform, there is no connection. Without connection, there is no art.
And without art, there is absolutely no security in this new landscape.
None.
It's a profound shift in how we navigate our days.
It really changes everything.
Instead of assigning yourself more homework or trying to find a new productivity app to squeeze 5 more minutes out of your morning.
Which we all do.
Right. Consider a different approach tomorrow. What if the highest ROI action you can take isn't optimizing your schedule?
What if it's simply learning the names of the people you usually walk right past and finally looking them in the eye?
In a world obsessed with speed and scale, slowing down to actually see someone might be the most radical and profitable thing you can do.
I completely agree.
But, if dignity is the key to connection, what happens when we finally strip away the armor that society tells us to wear to protect ourselves?
That's the terrifying part.
Right. If connection requires vulnerability, how much are we actually supposed to expose?
It's a fine line.
It is. So next time, we're going to dive into the terrifying, yet totally necessary, mechanics of vulnerability. And we'll explore why playing it safe in your career might actually be the most dangerous risk of all.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.